Alright. Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Late Night Tips. In this week's episode, we're going to look at the amazing Roland MV8800 and we're going to see if it makes sense to upgrade the hard drive to an SSD. Let's get right into it. This topic was suggested by a good friend of mine, LPD, and you can check out his amazing Matrix Brute jam right here. He's an MV8800 owner and a fan, and he wanted to see if there's any difference in loading times when you upgrade the original hard drive to a solid-state drive. Big thanks to him for recording this comparison. The Roland MV8800 is a modern-time classic, one of the most powerful MPC-style workstations of the 2000s. Introduced in 2003, it is a true production powerhouse. It is also worth noting that most probably right now the MV8800 is at the bottom of its price range, and I have a feeling that it's going to start appreciating rather steeply in the near future. So if you're thinking about getting one, now is the time to pull a trigger on it. One fundamental issue people have been having with the MV8800 is its loading speeds. And here the recommended solution is to buy an SSD. So let's see if that SSD installed in the device makes any difference. The first test is checking whether there is any difference in booting times between the SSD and the hard drive. Here you can see the SSD on the left-hand side of the screen and the hard drive on the right-hand side, both booting and loading a 21 meg project. The on-screen clock displays in seconds and frames, 30 frames per second instead of hundreds of a second. It is also worth noting that the machine is fully upgraded to 512 megabytes of RAM. So you can clearly see that the difference is not really big in here. It's only 3 seconds in favor of the SSD. So now let's check how quickly it's going to load a 100 meg folder for preview. One thing that is worth noting is the vintage look of the user interface. It really takes you back to 03. The difference in here is even less significant, only a fraction of a second for folder preview. Same goes for previewing a patch, the difference is really negligible. And when it comes to a bigger 88 meg project, the difference should be much more pronounced. Let's check it. A really cool feature of the MV8800 is that it has a dedicated digital synth engine with 2 oscillators. I believe that this is a feature that more samplers should embrace because it really adds to the versatility of the machine. So, with a bigger project, the difference between the drives is again only 4 seconds. I've got to admit that as much as I like the MV8800, those loading times are painfully slow. And here, let's check saving a larger project with samples in it. In here we recorded the biggest difference. This one clocked at a 7-second difference. So at the end of the day, it seems like the difference between a disk hard drive and a solid-state drive is really negligible, and even with an SSD installed, loading times are painfully slow. The loading times were calculated to be only 6% faster with an SSD, which actually will only make a difference if you're working with huge 500 meg projects. One notable rationale behind the upgrade is that a newer SSD will probably be more reliable and is less likely to die on you. Also, with an SSD installed, the machine seemed to react a little bit more quickly to button presses and generally felt more nimble. So that's it for this episode of Late Night Tips. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on the MV8800. If you're new to this channel, consider subscribing to catch more tutorials, more jams, and more opinions. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great night and take care.